I was sitting at the kitchen table, nursing a lukewarm coffee, when Sarah dropped the bomb. "I'm going to a party this Friday," she said, casual as you please, flipping her hair like it was no big deal. "Just me and the girls." Her voice had that tone, the one she used when she'd already made up her mind and wasn't looking for my opinion. I set my mug down, the ceramic clinking against the chipped formica, and leaned back in my chair. The air smelled of burnt toast. She'd left the bread in too long again, and the clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have. "Girls, huh?" I said, keeping my voice steady. "Who's gonna be there?" I wasn't born yesterday. We'd been married 6 years, and I knew her friends, Jenny with the loud laugh, Marie who always had a wine glass glued to her hand, and Tara, who was always posting selfies at bars. She shrugged, stirring her tea with a spoon, the metal scrapping the cup in a way that set my teeth on edge. "Just the usual crew. You don't know 'em all." She didn't look at me, just kept staring at that tea like it held the secrets of the universe. "I don't like it," I said plain. "You going out, leaving me here, without even saying where or who with. Ain't sitting, right?" I crossed my arms, my flannel shirt pulling tight across my shoulders. I ain't a big guy, but I work construction, so I got enough muscle to make a point when I need to. Sarah rolled her eyes, setting the spoon down with a clatter. "You're being dramatic, Mike. It's just a night out. I need this. Work's been hell, and I deserve some fun." She worked at some fancy office downtown, assistant to a hotshot manager, always coming home with stories about meetings and deadlines. "Fun's fine," I said, leaning forward now, my boots scrapping the linoleum. "But you're my wife. You don't just get to run off without me knowing the details. Where's this party at?" She sighed, like I was the one being unreasonable. "Hilton North, the ballroom. Tara got it booked for some work thing that turned into a girls' night. Happy now?" Her voice had that edge, like she was daring me to push harder. I didn't like it one bit. The Hilton North wasn't some dive bar where her friends would be slipping quarters into a jukebox. It was upscale, all chandeliers and overpriced drinks. I'd taken her there once, for our 3rd anniversary, and she'd worn this red dress that hugged her curves like it was made for her. Cost me 2 weeks' pay to cover that night. Now she was going there without me? My jaw tightened. All week, she kept bringing it up, like she was testing me. Monday, she mentioned buying new heels, black ones with straps that cost more than my toolbox. Tuesday, she was humming, while ironing that same red dress, the one I couldn't stop thinking about. Wednesday, she came home late, saying she had to stay for a team dinner. By Thursday, I was done asking questions she wouldn't answer straight. Friday morning, I was up before dawn, like always, frying eggs in the cast-iron skillet my ma gave us when we got hitched. Sarah came down in her work clothes, tight skirt, blouse unbuttoned just enough to make you look twice. She grabbed a yogurt from the fridge and kissed my cheek, her perfume lingering, like a taunt. "I'll be late tonight," she said, like it was nothing. "Don't wait up." I set the spatula down, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "Sarah," I said, my voice low, "I'm telling you now, I don't want you going. I ain't playing games. You go to that party, we're gonna have a problem." She froze, her hand on the doorknob. For a second, I thought she'd turn around, maybe laugh it off, say she'd stay home and watch a movie with me and the dog. But she just looked over her shoulder, her green eyes cold as the November wind. "I'm going, Mike. Deal with it." I stood there, the eggs sizzling behind me, and felt that knot in my gut tighten. "You walk out that door tonight," I said, slow and clear. "Don't bother coming back." She didn't say a word, just grabbed her purse and left, the door slamming shut like a gunshot. I stood there, staring at the empty kitchen, the smell of grease and coffee hanging heavy. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was rage, mixed with something else, betrayal, maybe, or just the sick feeling you get when you know you're losing something you can't get back. I didn't sit around moping. I grabbed my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and found the number I'd been holding on to for weeks. I'd done my homework, see. I tracked down the one person who'd want to know as much as I did. Her boss's wife. Lisa. I hit call. 2 rings, and she picked up. "This is Lisa," she said, her voice crisp, like she was expecting bad news. "Lisa, this is Mike. I ain't trying to stir trouble, but I'm doing what I'd want someone to do for me. Your husband and my wife, they're meeting tonight. Hilton North Ballroom, 8 o'clock. Thought you should know." There was a long pause, the kind that makes your skin crawl. Then she said, "Thank you," and hung up. I set the phone down, my heart pounding like a jackhammer. The eggs were burnt now, smoke curling up from the skillet. I turned off the stove, grabbed my jacket, and headed to the garage. I didn't know what Lisa would do, but I knew one thing. It was started. Whatever happened tonight, there was no going back. I knew Sarah would roll in Saturday morning, probably expecting me to be sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, ready to grill her about that damn party. But I wasn't there. I'd made up my mind long before she walked out in that red dress, her heels clicking on the hardwood like she was marching to war. I wasn't going to be the fool waiting for answers she'd never give straight. Friday night, after she left, I got to work. The house was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and our old lab, Rusty, snoring in his bed by the couch. I started in the bedroom, yanking my clothes from the closet, flannel shirts, work jeans, my good boots. I stuffed him into duffel bags, not folding, just moving. The closet looked wrong without my stuff, her dresses hanging. They're like ghosts of a life I was leaving behind. I grabbed my toolbox from the garage, the one my pops gave me when I turned 18, its edges rusted but still solid. Every socket wrench, every hammer, every nail I'd ever need, gone with me. Rusty perked up when I grabbed his leash. Poor guy didn't know what was happening, just wagged his tail, thinking we were heading for a walk. I loaded his food bowls, his ratty blanket, and a bag of kibble into the truck. The cab smelled like wet dog and motor oil, but it felt right. I took one last look at the house, yellow paint peeling on the porch, the mailbox we never fixed after that drunk kid clipped it last summer. It wasn't home anymore. I drove to my buddy Tom's place across town. He'd offered me a spare room weeks ago when I let slip things weren't right with Sarah. Didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and a key. I parked in his driveway, the gravel crunching under my tires, and hauled my bags inside. Rusty followed, sniffing every corner of Tom's bachelor pad, empty pizza boxes and all. I shut my phone off, yanked the battery for good measure, and tossed it in a drawer. My socials? I deleted them days ago. No posts, no profiles, no trace. I wasn't giving her a breadcrumb to follow. Back at the house, I'd left her something to find. On the kitchen table, right where we used to eat pancakes on Sundays, I set wedding ring. It glinted under the fluorescent light, a plain gold band that cost me 2 months' pay at the lumberyard. Next to it, a note in my blocky handwriting. Wrong choice. No explanation, no please. Just those 2 words, sharp as a blade. Beside that, a thick manila envelope, divorce papers, drawn up by a lawyer I'd found through Tom's cousin. I'd signed him already, my name in black ink, steady as my resolve. She'd know what it meant. I'd planned it all week, moving like a man passing a house for a storm. My truck, gone from the driveway. My fishing gear, my dad's old shotgun, even the coffee mug with the cracked handle I used every morning, all cleared out. I didn't touch her stuff, not her fancy candles or her stack of magazines. Let her keep her world. I was done with it. Even her parents, who'd always treated me like their own, didn't have a clue where I'd gone. I didn't call him, didn't leave a forwarding address. They'd hear from her soon enough. When I left, I locked the front door, the deadbolt snapping shut with a thud. The house stood dark, no lights, no life. I could picture her coming back, her key tinning in the lock, her heels tapping as she stepped inside, calling my name like nothing was wrong. She'd see the table, the ring, the note. She'd open that envelope and feel the ground drop out from under her. I wasn't there to see her face, but I didn't need to. I knew her well enough to imagine the shock, the panic, maybe even the tears. Didn't matter. She'd made her choice, and I'd made mine. At Tom's, I cracked a beer, the bottle cold against my palm. Rusty curled up at my feet, his gray muzzle twitching as he dreamed. The room smelled of sawdust and cheap cologne, but it was mine for now. I leaned back on the lumpy couch, staring at the ceiling, a single crack running through it like a fault line. I wasn't angry anymore, not like I'd been. Just empty, like the house I'd left behind. I'd vanished, clean as a shadow in a storm, and there was no going back. But let's rewind a little bit. It was a Tuesday for months back, when my phone buzzed in my pocket while I was hauling lumber at the job site. The sun was beaten down, sweat soaking my shirt, and the air smelled of sawdust and diesel. I wiped my hands on my jeans and saw Sarah's name on the screen. "Mike," she said, voice shaky, "my car's dead. Middle of nowhere, off Route 17. Can you help?" She sounded frazzled, not like her usual cool self, so I dropped everything. Told my foreman I'd be back and hopped in my truck, the engine growling as I peeled out. She was stranded by a gas station, she said, near that old diner with the neon sign that flickered, eat, even in daylight. I called a tow truck, one of those outfits that charge you an arm and a leg, and met her there. Her sedan was parked crooked on the shoulder, put up like it was surrendering. Sarah was leaning against it, arms crossed, her hair sticking to her forehead in the heat. She gave me a quick hug, Materin thanks, but her eyes kept darts into her phone. Work's a mess, she said, like that explained it. I didn't push, just stood there, watching the tow guy hook up her car, the chains clanking like a jail cell door. The mechanic said it was the alternator, $200 and a day's work. I told him to fix it, paid up front, and drove Sarah home in my truck. She was quiet, tapping her nails on the armrest, the sound like a woodpecker on a dead tree. I asked what happened, but she just shrugged. Car's old, Mike. It happens. Something in her voice was off, like she was reading lines from a script she didn't believe. Next day, I picked up her car from the shop. It was running fine, smelled like grease and new rubber. I drove it home, figuring I'd do her a favor and clean it out. Sarah was always leaving junk in there, coffee cups, receipts, that kind of thing. I parked in our driveway, the gravel crunching under the tires, and popped open the glove box. Under a stack of crumpled insurance papers, I found it. A motel key card, plain white with willow imprinted in faded blue. My heart did a weird lurch, like I'd missed a step going downstairs. I turned it over, no room number, just a magnetic strip staring back at me. I kept digging, my hands moving like they had a mind of their own. Tucked deeper, behind a manual for a car we didn't even own no more, was an open pack of protection. 3 missing. The plastic was crinkled, like it had been shoved in there quick. My hands shook, the kind of tremble you get when you're holding something too heavy for too long. I sat there in the driver's seat, staring at that pack, the engine still ticking as it cooled. The air felt thick, like I was breathing through a wet rag. I didn't call her right then, though every nerve in me wanted to. I just sat, letting the pieces fall into place. Sarah hadn't been herself lately. Coming home late, always glued to her phone, dodging questions with that fake laugh of hers. The motel card, the protection, it wasn't proof, not yet, but it was enough to make me stop trusting her. I stuffed him back in the glove box, exact same spot, like I'd never touched him. Closed it up, locked the car, and walked inside. In the kitchen, I cracked a beer, the bottle hissing like a warning. Rusty, our lab, was sprawled on the rug, his tail thumping when he saw me. I scratched his ears, trying to keep my head straight. Confronting her would have been easy, scream, fight, watch her lie to my face. But that wasn't me. I'm a builder, not a wrecker. I needed a plan, something solid, like laying a foundation. I'd watch her, quiet-like, and figure out what she was hiding. I'd get answers, but on my terms, not hers. That night, I started thinking it through. I'd check her car again, maybe her phone if I could get it. I'd keep my eyes open, note every late night, every excuse. My hands were still shaking as I set the beer down, the bottle sweating on the counter. I looked at Rusty, his big dumb eyes trusting me like always. We're gonna figure this out, boy, I said, my voice low. I wasn't ready to lose everything, not yet, but I was ready to start planning. I needed proof, something solid to make sense of the pit in my stomach. So, I went to the electronics store downtown, the one with the flickering sign and dusty shelves. Picked up a GPS tracker, small as a matchbox, with a magnet strong enough to stick to steel. Cost me $80, but I didn't blink. That night, under the cover of dark, I crept out to the garage, the air cool and smelling of motor oil. I popped the trunk of Sarah's sedan, lifted the spare tire, and tucked the tracker in the wheel well, where it wouldn't rattle or be found. I already knew about the willow inn from the key card. Now I'd let her show me the rest. The next weekend, Sarah came home from work all chipper, tossing her purse on the counter. Bachelorette party tomorrow, she said, pouring herself a glass of sweet tea. Tara's friend from college is getting married. Her voice was light, but her eyes didn't meet mine, dart into the fridge instead. I leaned against the counter, my boots scuffing the linoleum, and just nodded. Sounds fun, I said, keeping my tone even. Inside, I was Callanbull. Tara hadn't mentioned no wedding, and Sarah's stories had been slipping lately, full of holes like a bad alibi. I called my buddy Tom, the one who'd always have my back. We'd known each other since high school, when we'd skip class to fish at the creek. Man, I need you. I told him over the phone, my voice low so Sarah wouldn't hear from the living room. Something's up with her. Can you ride with me tomorrow? Tom didn't hesitate. Meet me at my place, 7 sharp, he said. I could hear the clink of a beer bottle in the background, but I knew he'd be ready. Saturday night, Sarah left the house in a black dress, shorter than anything she'd wear to church. Her heels clicked down the porch steps, and she waved, saying, "Don't wait up, Mike." I watched her car pull out, the taillights glowing red in the dusk. I grabbed my keys, my old Canon camera, and a thermos of coffee, then drove to Tom's. He was waiting in his driveway, wearing a faded hoodie and a grim look. "You sure about this?" he asked, climbing into my truck. "Yeah," I said, gripping the wheel. "I gotta know." The Trackers app showed her car heading toward the Willow Inn, just like I figured. We followed, keeping a few cars back, the highway humming under my tires. The motel was off Route 17, a squat building with a neon sign that buzzed like a trapped fly. I parked across the lot, near a dumpster that reeked of old food, and killed the engine. Tom handed me a pair of binoculars from his glove box. "You're going all detective," he muttered, but he didn't smile. There she was, stepping out of her car, her dress catching the motel's floodlights. Then a guy showed up, tall, suit crisp, hair slicked back like some city hotshot. I recognized him from a company picnic last summer. Her boss, Greg. My chest tightened as they walked to the check-in desk, her laugh floating across the lot. Then, right there in the parking lot, under a flickering streetlight, they kissed. Not a peck, but a full-on, hands-on-hips kiss, like they didn't give a damn who saw. My hands shook as I grabbed the camera, snapping photos through the windshield, the shutter clicking like a heartbeat. Tom stayed quiet, but I could feel him watching me, waiting for me to lose it. I didn't. I needed one more piece. I pulled out my phone and called Tara, the friend Sarah said she'd be with. "Hey, Tara," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You at that bachelorette party with Sarah?" There was a pause, then Tara's voice, confused. "I'm out of town, Mike. Been in Chicago all week." "What party?" That was it, the last nail. I thanked her, hung up, and stared at the motel. Sarah and Greg were gone, probably inside by now, but I had what I needed: photos, a tracker log, and Tara's words. I started the truck, the engine roaring to life. Tom looked at me. "What now?" he asked. I gripped the wheel. "Now I plan," I said. The motel lights faded in my rear view as we drove off, the night swallowing us whole. I got to work, quiet and deliberate, like laying bricks for a wall nobody'd see coming. I had to protect myself, get out clean, and leave her wondering what hit her. Not a word to her, not a hint I knew. I'd play it smart and vanish like smoke. First thing, I needed a lawyer. I called Tom's cousin, Dave, who knew a guy from his poker nights, a divorce attorney named Carl who didn't mess around. Met him at a diner off the highway, the kind with greasy spoons and waitresses who call you hon. Carl was all business, sipping black coffee in a cheap suit. I showed him the photos from the motel, the GPS logs, Tara's call transcript I typed up on my phone. "This'll make it quick," he said, scribbling notes on a yellow pad. "We'll file for fault, protect your assets." He told me to lock down my money, so I spent that afternoon at the bank, pulling my name off our joint account. Moved my savings, every dollar from 6 years, into a new account under my name only. The teller, a kid with a bad mustache, gave me a funny look, but I just stared back till he finished the paperwork. Quit in, my job was next. I'd been at the construction yard since I was 20, swinging a hammer under the same foreman who'd taught me how to frame a house. I didn't make a scene, just walked into his office, a trailer that smelled of cigarettes and sawdust, and said I was done. "Family stuff," I told him, shaking his hand. He nodded, didn't pry. That same week, I've been scouting new work. Found a gig at a smaller outfit across town, pouring concrete for strip malls. Less pay, but they didn't know Sarah, didn't know my past. I'd start fresh, no questions asked. Sign the offer letter in a coffee shop, using a pen with a chewed-up cap. Packing, up to time. I didn't want Sarah catching on, so I moved my stuff in stages, bit by bit, when she was at work. Started with my tools, wrenches, drills, the level my pops gave me before he passed. Loaded him into my truck, the bed creaking under the weight, and drove him to Tom's place. His garage was a mess, full of old bike parts and empty paint cans, but he cleared a corner for me. I told Tom everything one night over beers at his place. We sat on his back porch, the air thick with summer heat, crickets chirping in the dark. I laid it out, the motel, the kiss, Tara's call. His jaw tightened, but he didn't say much, just handed me another bottle, the glass cold against my palm. You can crash here, he said, pointing to his spare room, a box of a space with a lumpy mattress and a fan that rattled. Stay as long as you need. I nodded, grateful, but didn't say it. Didn't need to. Tom got it. Every move was calculated. I didn't touch Sarah's things, her fancy candles, her stack of fashion magazines on the coffee table. Let her think everything was fine. I'd come home after moving, a load, sit on the couch with Rusty, and act like the same old Mike. She'd chatter about work, her boss, some project, and I'd nod, sipping my beer, my face a mask. Inside, I was counting down the days till I'd be gone for good. No fights, no hints. I kept my mouth shut, my plans locked tight in my head. The house, with its creaky floors and chipped paint, wasn't mine anymore. I was already halfway out the door, and Sarah didn't have a damn clue. All week, Sarah played it slick, acting like I was the one blowing things out of proportion. She kept yammering about that party, spinning it like it was just her and the girls kicking back. Mike, I need a break, she'd say, chopping carrots for dinner with that smug little grin. Work's been killing me, and I just want some fun. Fun. That word grated on me, knowing what I knew, her boss, the motel, the whole damn lie. I'd grunt, sip my coffee, keep my face stone cold. But I was done. My plan was locked in, and she didn't have a clue. Monday, she came home with a new necklace, a shiny thing dangling, like it cost a week's pay. Tuesday, she was humming some pop song, curling her hair in the bathroom, the air thick with hairspray. Wednesday, she left her purse open on the counter, a receipt for fancy wine poking out. Thursday, she tried acting sweet, leaning against me on the couch, but I felt nothing, just the weight of her lies. I'd already moved my stuff to Tom's, bit by bit, and the lawyer had the divorce papers waiting. She thought she was playing me, but I was playing chess. Friday morning hit, the air heavy with that sticky summer heat. I was in the kitchen, scrambling eggs in the old skillet, the grease hissing like a rattler. Sarah came down in her work outfit, pencil skirt, blouse cut just low enough to turn heads. She grabbed a banana, pecked my cheek, her lipstick leaving a faint smudge. I'll be late tonight, she said, all casual, like she wasn't walking into a trap. Parties at the Hilton North, don't stress. I set the pan down, wiped my hands on a rag, and looked her square in the eye. Sarah, I said, my voice cold as a January wind, I'm telling you now, one last time. You walk out that door tonight, don't come back. We're done. The words landed hard, like a hammer on a nail. She froze, her hand gripping her purse, and for a second, I thought she'd say something real. But she just smirked, shook her head, and said, You're being ridiculous, Mike. Then she was gone, the door slapped in shut behind her. I didn't wait. I grabbed my phone, scrolled to the number I dug up weeks ago. I'd done my digging on Lisa, her boss's wife, tracked her down through a coworker's wife who owed me a favor. Knew her name, her number, her routine. Knew she was getting played, same as me, 'cause I'd seen her husband, Greg, eyeing Sarah like a hawk at last year's company barbecue. I dialed. 2 rings. This is Lisa, she answered, voice sharp, like she was waiting for bad news. Lisa, it's Mike, I said, keeping it steady. I ain't here to cause a scene, just doing what I'd want done for me. Your husband and my wife are meeting tonight. Hilton North Ballroom, round 8, then likely the Willow and after, like before. I let it hang there. A long pause stretched out, heavy as a storm cloud. Thank you, she said, and the line went dead. I knew she'd be there, stirring up hell. That evening, I watched Sarah leave. Her heels clicked down the porch, and her car peeled out, taillights vanishing into the dusk. I locked the door, grabbed my last bag, and drove to Tom's. Left the house empty, except for ring on the kitchen table, a note saying wrong choice, and the divorce papers in a thick envelope. Sarah got home, round 2 a.m., probably expecting me to be sitting there, stewing. Instead, she found nothing. No truck in the driveway, no rusty wagging his tail, no clothes in the closet. The house was dark, the fridge hummed the only sound. She flicked on the kitchen light, saw the ring glinting under the bulb, the note in my blocky handwritten. She tore open the envelope, divorce papers spilling out, my signature staring up at her. She freaked, hands shaking as she dialed my phone, straight to voicemail, 'cause I'd yanked the battery. She called Tom, her parents, even the neighbor, but nobody knew where I was. She rummaged through the house, checking drawers, the garage, finding my tools gone, my boots missing. She paced, heart racing, calling my name into the empty rooms, but I was a ghost. I'd planned it perfect, and she was chasing shadows. A month after I left, I was settling into my new apartment, a bare-bones place with creaky floors and a view of a gravel lot. It was a Sunday evening, rain tapping on the windows like a nervous drumbeat. I was kicking back on the couch, Rusty snoring at my feet, a half-empty beer sweating on the coffee table. The TV was muttering some football game I wasn't really watching. Then came a knock at the door, sharp and quick, cutting through the quiet. I figured it was Tom, maybe dropping by with pizza like he did sometimes. But when I opened the door, there stood Sarah. Her sister must have spotted me downtown, probably at the hardware store where I'd been buying paint for the apartment. Sarah's hair was limp, no shine like it used to have, and her eyes were sunk deep, like she hadn't caught a break in weeks. Her coat was soaked, clinging to her frame, and her boots left muddy prints on my doorstep. I didn't say nothing, just stepped aside and let her in. No sense making a scene in the hallway. She stood in the living room, dripped in on the cheap rug, looking around like she was lost. The place was sparse, just a couch, a table, and a couple boxes I hadn't unpacked. Rusty lifted his head, gave her a glance, then went back to snoring. I walked to the kitchen counter, grabbed the manila envelope I'd kept ready since I moved in. It was thick, stuffed with everything I'd collected, photos of her and her boss at the motel, screenshots of the GPS tracker logs, a typed-up note of Tara's call saying she was out of town. I tossed it on the coffee table, the thud loud in the quiet room. "Sit," I said, pointing to the couch. She did, her hands fidgeting in her lap. I stayed standing, arms crossed, my flannel shirt still speckled with paint from earlier. "Open it," I told her. She hesitated, then reached for the envelope, her fingers shaken as she pulled out the stack. Her eyes widened at the photos, her and Greg kissing in the motel lot, clear as day under the streetlight. The GPS logs showed her car's path to the Willow Inn, dates and times stamped like a confession. She flipped through it all, her breath hitching, then looked up at me, tears pulling in her eyes. "Mike," she started, voice cracking, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen like this." She slid off the couch, dropping to her knees on the rug, clutching the photos like they'd burn her. "Can we try again? Please. I messed up, I know, but I love you." Her words came fast, desperate, like she was trying to outrun the truth. I leaned against the wall, my boots scuffing the floor. "I knew since your car broke down," I said, keeping my voice flat. "Found the motel key card, the protections in your glove box. Been watching you lie ever since." Her mouth opened, then snapped shut, like a fish realizing it's hooked. Her face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks, smearing what was left of her makeup. "You were my world," I said, my voice low but steady. "Everything I did, working, overtime, fixing up the house, planning a future, it was for us. And you spat on that. You could have come clean, told me straight. Instead, you ran around with your boss, feeding me fairy tales." I felt my jaw tighten, but I kept it together, no yelling, just truth. She sobbed, loud and messy, her hands covering her face. I was confused, she choked out. I didn't know what I wanted. "Please, Mike, forgive me. We can fix this." I laughed, a hard, bitter sound that echoed off the bare walls. "Confused," I said, stepping closer, towering over her. "You ain't confused, Sarah. You're just mad you got caught. You made your choice, and it wasn't me." I pointed to the door, my hand steady. "Get out of my apartment before I call the cops." She froze, still on her knees, looking up at me like a kid who'd lost her favorite toy. Her sobs quieted, but the tears kept coming, dripping onto the rug. "Mike, please," she whispered, voice barely there. "No." I barked, loud enough to make Rusty's ears twitch. She flinched, scrambled to her feet, and grabbed her coat. The envelope spilled onto the floor, photos scattering like leaves. She didn't pick him up, just stumbled to the door, her boots squeaking on the wet floor, and ran out into the rain, leaving nothing but silence and the smell of her perfume. For months after Sarah ran out of my apartment in tears, the divorce was final. The lawyer, Carl, called me on a gray Thursday morning while I was pouring coffee into my chipped mug. "Papers are done, Mike," he said, his voice all business over the crackle of the line. "Sign him and send him back." I drove to his office, a squat brick building next to a laundromat, the air smelling of detergent and burnt rubber. The papers were thick, legal jargon stacked like bricks, but I didn't read much. Just scrawled my name in black ink, my hand steady as a carpenter's. Shipped him back that afternoon from a post office with a flickering neon sign, the clerk barely looking up as he stamped the envelope. That was it. Sarah was gone from my life, like a nail pulled clean from a board. I never saw her again. Didn't want to. Heard through Tom that her boss's wife, Lisa, blew up at a company party right in the middle of some fancy ballroom downtown. Apparently, she stormed in, tossed a glass of wine in Greg's face, and laid into him in front of his coworkers, calling him out for running around. Word was he got canned, lost his fancy corner office, and was scrapping by on odd jobs. Good. He built his castle on lies, and it crumbled. I didn't care to know more. Let him rot. Every morning, I'd take Rusty for a walk down a dirt path, his gray muzzle sniffing at every root and rabbit trail. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp leaves and wood smoke from some neighbor's fire. I'd let him wander, his leash dragging in the dust, while I sipped coffee from a thermos, watching the sun cut through the trees. Work was steady at the new job, pouring concrete for strip malls, hauling bags of cement, till my shoulders burned. The crew was a good bunch, didn't ask questions about my past. I kept my head down, showed up early, left late. Didn't need nobody prying. My days fell into a rhythm. Wake up to the sound of birds, not car horns. Fry eggs in a cast iron skillet, the grease popping like it did back home. Drive to work in my truck, the radio playing old country tunes, Johnny Cash's voice rattling through the speakers. Evenings, I'd sit on the porch, Rusty at my feet, a beer in my hand, the bottle cold against my palm. The stars were brighter out here, sharp against the black sky, no city lights to dull them. I'd think sometimes, but not about her. Not much, anyway. I'd think about the lake nearby, how I ought to take Rusty fishing one weekend, or about the loose board on the porch I needed to fix. I wasn't bitter, not like I could have been. That fire had burned out, leaving just ash and a clear head. I learned my lesson. Trust is earned, not given, and I'd been too quick to hand it over before. Now, I was smarter, sharper, like a blade honed on a whetstone. The cabin, the woods, the quiet, it was freedom, plain and simple. No lies, no games. Just me and Rusty, living on our terms. I'd built a new life, piece by piece, and it was solid. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe, like the air wasn't choking me no more. A year has passed since the divorce. It was late, a rainy Tuesday night, the kind of weather that keeps folks inside. I figured it was a neighbor needin' a jump for a dead battery or some hiker lost in the woods. I set the beer down, the floorboards creaking under my boots, and opened the door. There stood Lisa, her boss's wife, looking sharp as a tack in a black coat, holding a bottle of whiskey in one hand and a thick folder in the other. "I owe you, Mike," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invite. Rain dripped off her hood, pulling on my rug. She looked calm, I steady, not like someone caught in a storm. I grabbed 2 glasses from the kitchen, mismatched ones I'd picked up at a yard sale, and set them on the table. "What's this about?" I asked, my voice rough from the quiet night. She poured the whiskey, the amber liquid glugging, into the glasses, and slid the folder across the scratched-up table. "Open it," she said, sitting down like she owned the place. I flipped it open, and there it was, bank statements, invoices with forged signatures, emails between Sarah and Greg, her boss. They'd been stealing from the company, funneling cash through fake vendors to some offshore account. My ex wasn't just running around behind my back. She was neck-deep in fraud, cooking books like a pro. The papers showed dates, amounts, even coded messages about shipments that weren't shipments at all. My gut twisted, not 'cause I cared about her anymore, but 'cause I'd missed this whole damn scheme. They thought they were untouchable, Lisa said, her voice cold as the rain outside. "I've got a lawyer and a forensic accountant digging through it. Feds are circling now. Greg's done, and Sarah's next." She sipped her whiskey, watching me over the rim. I leaned back, the chair groaning, the burn of the liquor hitting my throat. Sarah? A fraudster? I'd pegged her for a liar, but this was a whole new level. "Here's the kicker," Lisa said, leaning forward, her eyes locking onto mine like a hawk. "They're trying to pin some of this on you. Saying you knew about the accounts, maybe even helped set them up before you left. Sarah's got a lawyer, funded by some inheritance from her uncle, and she's building a case to drag you down with her." My blood ran cold, like someone dumped ice water down my spine. I'd been careful, locked my accounts, kept my nose clean, but this was a knife I didn't see coming. I don't like being played, Lisa said, her voice low, sharp. And I reckon you don't either. I've got the money and the lawyers to bury him legally. But I need your help. Those photos, the GPS logs, the text you've got, they prove you were out of the loop, just a guy getting betrayed. Testify, and we'll flip this on him. They'll go down for fraud, and you'll walk clean. I stared at the folder, the papers spilling out like a bad hand of cards. Lisa sat there, waiting, her glass glinting in the firelight. I didn't trust her all the way, she had her own score to settle, but the thought of Sarah trying to frame me after everything? That lit a fire in me I hadn't felt in months. I raised my glass, the whiskey catching the light, and clinked it against hers. I'm in, I said, my voice steady as the rain outside. Drop your thoughts in the comments. How does the revelation of the fraud scheme change your view of Sarah's betrayal compared to her earlier actions in the story? And if you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.